Imagine being chosen before you were even born, given a mission no one else would dare to accept. Jeremiah wasn't just another young man from Judah. He was set apart by God himself. While still in his mother's womb, it sounds grand, doesn't it? But what seemed like a glorious calling quickly turned into a journey filled with persecution and suffering. What would you do if you had to deliver messages no one wanted to hear, knowing it could cost you your freedom? Jeremiah was tasked with warning the kingdom of Judah about a grim future. The people had turned away from God, and destruction was at their doorstep. But he was just a young man without experience, without support, and with doubts you might share. Yet God chose him. What if you were in his place? It's impossible not to put yourself in issues and reflect on how you deal with your own challenges. The story isn't just about the past. It's about you, your decisions, and the courage needed to face life's hardships. Jeremiah had to learn these lessons the hard way, and this was only the beginning of his journey. This is just the gateway to a story that will make you think deeply. Imagine living in a time when everything seems upside down. In Judah, those who are supposed to lead with justice were drowning in corruption, and the people had traded their faith in God for idols of stone and wood. It was absolute chaos. In this setting of spiritual and political decline, Jeremiah emerged as a lone voice, trying to warn a kingdom heading straight for destruction. Have you ever tried to warn someone about an imminent danger and been ignored? Then you understand exactly what he faced. Judah was surrounded by enemies, broken alliances, and disastrous decisions. Like a crumbling castle, meanwhile, Jeremiah saw disaster looming, like a storm on the horizon. But the people refused to listen. Think about it. What would you do if you knew your entire city was about to fall? Would you run through the streets shouting? That's exactly what Jeremiah did. But the people were too caught up in their own desires to pay attention. What's most fascinating is that Jeremiah didn't just face rejection from the people, but also the weight of standing against an entire system. Defying God, he was one man fighting against an entire society. If you were in his place, would you have the courage to speak the truth, knowing no one wanted to hear it? This is just a glimpse of the challenge he faced. Jeremiah is known as the weeping prophet for a simple reason. He deeply felt the weight of his mission. While others might have stood firm in the face of rejection, he wept for the people of Judah, for the impending destruction, and for the hardened hearts of a nation that refused to listen. Have you ever felt like no one understands you, even when all you want is to help? Then you can imagine how Jeremiah felt. Amid so much pain and loneliness, his message was harsh: repent or face the consequences. But the people didn't just reject his words. They turned their backs on him. Jeremiah was persecuted, humiliated, and rejected, all because of his faithfulness to God. He bore the kind of suffering only those who truly care can endure, yet he persisted. After all, how could he ignore what God had placed in his heart, even when it cost him everything? What makes his mission even more impactful is that Jeremiah couldn't simply quit. The tears he shed weren't just for himself, but for a people heading toward destruction. It's a story of pain, yes, but also of resilience, because even when everything seemed lost, he continued to proclaim the truth, and that commitment would lead him even deeper into humiliation. Jeremiah's life wasn't just marked by harsh words, but by actions even crueler against him. Imagine being imprisoned and tortured just for speaking the truth. Jeremiah was thrown into a dungeon, placed in public stocks, to be mocked by those he was trying to save. It was as if every word he spoke came at the cost of his dignity. Have you ever thought about how much you'd endure to defend what you believe in? While imprisoned, Jeremiah endured humiliation that would test anyone to their limits. His enemies wanted to silence him, and the powerful saw him as a threat. Yet he didn't give in. It's curious how often those doing good are treated as though they're the enemy. Jeremiah proved that true courage isn't the absence of fear, but the decision to continue even when everything conspires against you. And the most surprising part, Jeremiah didn't just endure, He kept proclaiming God's message with even more conviction. Imagine being in a place where no one supports you, where physical and emotional torture are constant, and still finding the strength to press on. That's what he did. And even in the face of such adversity, he brought a message that went beyond judgment, a promise of hope, which is where the story deepens even further. Jeremiah wasn't just the messenger of judgment, he was also the voice of hope. In the midst of chaos, amidst so many warnings of destruction and exile, he delivered a powerful promise. After 70 years of exile in Babylon, Judah would be restored. It's remarkable to think that, even while facing persecution and torture, he could envision a better future. That hope was like a beacon in a dark night, showing that even in suffering, God hadn't abandoned his people. He spoke of a new covenant written not on stone tablets, but on the hearts of the people. Imagine hearing this at a time when everything seemed lost. It was like telling someone who had lost everything, "You will rebuild, and it will be even better than before." Jeremiah knew the exile would be harsh, but he believed the pain would mark the beginning of a profound transformation. Isn't it inspiring to think that even the worst moments can be the starting point for something greater? This message of hope wasn't just for a distant future. It was a call for the people to turn back to God. In the present, Jeremiah proved that even when everything seems lost, there's still a chance for redemption. But would the people take it? The tragedy and beauty of this story lie, and how he held firm to his mission until the end. And that's where we conclude this journey, learning from the resilience and faith of a prophet who didn't give up, even when everything was against him. Have you ever felt that doing the right thing only brought you problems? Jeremiah lived that like no one else. Chosen by God before he was born, he was sent with an almost impossible mission: to save Judah from destruction by delivering truths no one wanted to hear. In return, persecution, torture, and being labeled crazy. But the most surprising thing, he didn't give up. Jeremiah's story isn't just about the past. It's about you, how we face the weight of our choices, and the courage to continue even when the world is against us. Have you ever had to fight against everything and everyone for what you believe in? Jeremiah lived that to the fullest, and it's impossible not to see yourself in his journey. If you think you've heard stories of courage and resilience before, wait until you learn about his. Stick around, because what you'll discover about the weeping prophet might change how you face life's challenges. So, are you ready to hear a story that will move you? Jeremiah's story teaches us something profound. Even amid pain, persecution, and torture, it's possible to remain faithful to your purpose. And now I ask you, what are you doing with the challenges in your life? Will you give up at the first difficulty, or will you use them as fuel to grow? Jeremiah faced humiliations that would break anyone, but he stood firm. What's your excuse for not trying? Think about it. How many times have you stayed silent out of fear of rejection? What if today was the day to change that? Life won't wait for you to feel ready. Jeremiah shows us that even without guarantees, it's worth fighting for what's right. So what's your next step? Will you keep ignoring the call? Or will you act now? If you want to keep learning and growing, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Don't let this inspiration die here. Jeremiah may have faced challenges thousands of years ago, but the lessons he leaves us are timeless. Let's go on this journey together.